So if you're suicidal, for example, the last thing you probably want to see is a police officer at your door, like, or coming into your house telling you to stop killing, like, don't do it. That's going to make you angry.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're going to go into a different mood. Now, from hurting yourself, now you're angry and you want to hurt the police officer. That's not going to get you anywhere.
For sure.
So there's a lot of situations where you kind of have to stop and reevaluate and question, why are police being sent? Right?
Good point.
Yeah, and are police trained mental health professionals? Nope.
Mm-hmm.
So you're expecting these guys who aren't trained as mental health professionals to go into a mental health situation. And that's the other thing is, when there is a mental health situation, people tend to call the police before they call mental health.
True.
So the police arrive. The police have to react to the situation. Right? It's hard for them if they show up and there's a lot of people in danger. Are they supposed to, like, stop and say, hey, can someone let's wait till the therapist arrives? Like, somebody, they need to somehow know that there's something wrong here. And so there's a lot wrong. Like, there should be some form of information so that they know that, okay, when we arrive at this house, this person has a history of mental health. So maybe we need to send somebody who has a little mental health training, or maybe we need to pick up a little help along the way,
mm-hmm.
as opposed to just sending a police officer there and you know bad things are going to happen.
Definitely.
That's that's one of my arguments.
Yeah.
There's a really good Vice video on YouTube that you should probably watch.
Probably.
And it's a gentleman who's interviewing, I believe it's like 8 different police officers from different areas in the States. And it's talking about ratting their own people out and the consequences of ratting their own people out. So in other words, if they see a police officer doing something wrong and they tell their boss, there's consequences to that. And some offices, it's a good consequence, like in some departments, police departments. In other departments, you become ostracized. So when you need help, no one's going to be available to help you.
My God.
Yeah, so like, I'm not joking. I'll send you these because I think it's very interesting. And there's another podcast as well. But
link in the description.
And in the info card in the top right corner.
Yeah, but it's one of those where you really stop and think, okay, the problem is that systemically they can't say anything. The issue is higher up, right? The issue is that also, if you rat on the guy that you're riding with, do you think you're riding with somebody who's going to have your back if something happens?
Oh.
Right? And that's kind of their attitude. So some places you go to, some police departments, they deal with it accurately, the right way. And other places don't. And then you have to look at who they're related to within the police department. Because if their dad is somebody, then they may always get away with murder. No pun intended. I didn't mean it like that. But did not mean it like that. But you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So it just like anywhere else though. Like, I'll tell you, every single institution is systemically flawed. Right? Like, anytime you have a big company, there's something wrong. There's always something going on.
True.
Right? And it's no different. It's just, unfortunately, the police are public.
Mm-hmm.
So they should be held to a higher standard.
Yeah.
Especially because they're policing us.
Yeah, especially because honestly, I think, because honestly, what's ridiculous, and I think a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people sort of agree with this, is that I think that just because they're police, there's somehow
It's a double standard.
Excuse for their actions, because
totally, because they're police, they get to do it. Like, it's a double standard, but it also, you got to look at, the police officer learned to be that way from somebody. Somebody let him be that way, and let him continue to be that way. So my question is, who let him? Who knew? Who knew? Because they're guilty. Both of them. But they are too, because they knew. Before these things happened, before it got to the point that it's at now, there were signs that this person should not be a police officer. Come on. You and I both, like, I work with people. I deal with 1,000 people every day. I can tell you, usually by meeting somebody, what kind of person they're going to be. And, you know, especially a couple interactions, like, you kind of can figure people out.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't see a police officer who would be like that, hiding his opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just me, though.
Well, one fun thing before this get too long and we're spending like a full week on this.
Sorry, James.
It's fine. It's fine. I get multiple videos out of this, anyways.
Good. I'm glad I could help you.
Yeah. What do you think? Just in general, what do you think? Like this sort of racism against like black people, because this is kind of what the main topic was going to be, where we went into like maybe 5 different tangents. What do you think, like black people are just generally more targeted for like racism against police? Because I mean,
it's because of the fact that, okay, so they were slaves up until the 50s, or not, sorry, 50s, but they were policed differently up until the 50s, 60s. I think it was like 1954. I think it was, anyway. But so up until then, they were policed differently. The police system hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. But they have. Their role in society has changed. And unfortunately, we still live in a world, they still live in a world, where they look over their shoulder, like people walk by them, white people, and hold their purses a little tighter. You know what I mean? It's that stereotype, that same stereotype that they have, that unfortunately results in police questioning them first. Also, like, they're not set up like we are. Okay, so majority of us have, you know, basic needs taken care of. But unfortunately, a lot of them, so when they no longer were enslaved, and when they with segregation, they didn't have the same job opportunities we did. They weren't able to get the jobs. Now that they had the ability, people still didn't hire them. It's not like overnight people were like, okay, yeah, we're good, buddies. There's still those people who lived during segregation who still feel the same way, that they should not be in the same world. Another good podcast is How White Parents Changed Education, I believe it's called, but I'll send that one to you too. Just how they don't realize they're being racist by saying, hey, let's fundraise. All of you guys come and help buy stuff. How come you're not buying stuff? Well, you don't have money? Well, then why are you here? You can't fundraise. Like, it's an issue that starts with, okay, it's hard for them to, this is in the United States. It's hard to find a job. So a lot of them already have bad credit, right? Born into debt. Can't get a job because there's a credit check involved in a lot of jobs in the States. Okay? So you can't
why?
get it because they don't want you to steal money from the company.
Oh.
So you're born into debt, have bad credit, get a credit check, can't get a job. Then you're on welfare. Then you get a menial job. Like, there's no hope for them. There's no way. It's like this god-awful cycle. And until we kind of break that cycle, they're always going to be fending for themselves, so to speak. And you have all these problems in their communities and such, because there is this cycle of hopelessness. And a lot of them feel that way. It's like, why try to get a job that they're never going to get? I'll just drug deal. So then you have these stereotypes that are built from what's happened that isn't really even their fault.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I mean? So
yeah.
you have no hope. You do what you can to make it by, and then now you have that stereotype, right? And that's why there's areas even in Vancouver, we have the low income areas, right? And you have the rich sides, and that's how it was in the States. You have your black communities, the ghettos, and all that. It still is that way in certain places. I know when I was a kid in Indiana, there was a ghetto. Still is. But so, if you don't stop the way you've been brought up to think, you teach your children to think the same way, is that ever going to change?
Mm-hmm.
So, people are always nervous around a lot, not all, again, not trying to stereotype, but certain people are nervous around black people. They're quick to accuse black people because they saw a dark shadow. That's racist. I saw a shadow. No kidding, it's dark. Why did you have to put that in there? Right? But that's how people talk. And like the whole hoodie business a few years ago. Remember that guy who was wearing a hoodie and he was walking home and then the other George killed him? I can't remember his last name right now. But that was in the States as well. Mm. And it's because a young boy, black, was wearing a hood. He assumed that he wasn't safe and shot him, killed him. It was in Florida, I believe. So, Zimmerman. I want to say Zimmerman's the last name. But these are the kinds of things that happen because we teach each other to be racist. Mm-hmm. Without meaning to. and these families teach your kids. So that's why black people are often targeted. Segregation was not long ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that a lot of people forget, is that segregation was not that long ago. And we did not deal with it the right way. That's unfortunately the problem with social media too, is social media can make statements into facts. And we have a lot of people who are making false statements into facts. And a lot more people believing it. And that's my fear, is that social media is partly why we are as messed up as we are right now. There are too many people tweeting too many things or posting too many things that are blatantly false. And until recently, Facebook and Twitter never said, hey, this is wrong. But you know what I mean? Like that's what I mean. Like, you wouldn't normally... It's not like, you know, you read an encyclopedia and you know what you read. But when you read a tweet from the leader of that country, which I will not say, people read that and think it's factual. And it blows my mind how incredibly wrong it is that this person is making lies into facts. And that's what's screwing people up, is they're believing false truths. Right? And you can say fake news all you want. If you want to know what is real, please do the research. Because anymore, if you think you're just going to go on Twitter and check your timeline, that's not research. That never was research, FYI.
Yeah.
but like, people read things on social media and they think they're educated and they know what they're talking about. Like, I have many people who have come to me and they're like, do you know this? And I'm like, yeah, you saw that on Instagram the other day, so you know that was not true. Like, look a little deeper.
Actually, something to add on to that is also have conversations like these.
Yeah.
You know, this conversation has been extremely educational for me.
And me too.
Yeah, because even though what you may know, maybe someone doesn't else know, and it's just helpful to share information. Although I will say, please do, because I don't know why I can't talk right now.
I always do that. I make everyone nervous.
But no, it's not that. I think I'm just starting to overheat, and also my eyes are starting to burn because of the mask. But please do educate yourself and have conversations with other people. But do be careful about like who you talk to, because I mean, for a while I think a lot of people were saying like, hey, black people, tell me your stories. But that's not really the case. That shouldn't be the case, because it should be a conversation with.
So I didn't really explain that all too well, and I go on for like another minute, like sort of stuttering. But basically, what I was trying to get at is that a conversation is the exchange of information between two individuals, like their thoughts, opinions, and ideas. It's not one person going up and being like, hey, everyone else, teach me. Like, of course, if you see someone feeling sad, of course you should go up and talk to them. Of course you should do that. But don't expect someone to teach you, or like don't ask someone to teach you to make yourself look better, because that's what I think a lot of people were doing it for a good little while. If that makes sense.
Someone who's willing to have that conversation with you, and also just asking people to tell their sad past when they haven't said, hey, can I talk with someone? That's not really educating themselves.
Yeah. Well, and to me
it's just lazy.
Just talk to people. The best way to educate yourself about this, because this is all about people's experiences. That's what racism in this situation is. It's what people are feeling, what they're experiencing, and have a conversation. Like James, you texted me and asked me, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to, because I know it's educational for me too, and it gives me a chance to kind of see someone else's perspective. Because also with COVID, we're not talking to a lot of people.
Definitely, for sure.
So I really appreciate this conversation, James.
Yeah.
It's a subject that you can't just, brush off and say, okay, here's a quick response, because, I mean, your own experiences kind of mold you into who you are, and seeing what you see growing up and what you experience in the real world, right? And I've worked in a school for 20 some odd years, so do I see myself as racist? I don't think so, but at the same time, obviously I'm guilty of something. Like, no one's perfect, right?
Yeah.
But I always want to point out, like, being mixed race in this society, it's hard.
Definitely.
Right? Like, it's hard because both sides sometimes don't like you. And
sure.
that's what my cousin, before I let you go, that's what my cousin experienced. So the Asian side didn't like that he was half black. right? And so there's a lot of racism within families that really need to be addressed.
Before I end this video, because I think this has gone long enough, I also think racism is a topic that's not talked about enough. I think there's just because it's, well, yes, it's uncomfortable because you're talking about like a dark past. I think it's just viewed as, hey, can we talk about racism? It's like the other person is like, not really. It's kind of viewed as sort of bad to talk about racism
Yeah.
in my general opinion.
It's like a faux pas.
Because I mean, yeah, like for example, like you were talking about like the school and education, and it's, but you were talking about school and education and yeah, it was really helpful to learn more about like the indigenous culture and education and like the race, but although we would generally never really mention racism as just a solid core thing.
No.
So
It's
I
something
mean,
to talk about.
yeah, definitely.
Because I think that what you don't realize, that unfortunately we get to see in the office, is there's a lot of racism in the school. And you would never think that. And that's kind of the whole thing, is that racism exists everywhere. There's always somebody who has an opinion. But it's just whether or not we let that person have power with that opinion. Right? Sorry, just want that to be fixed.
Yeah.
If that was fixed, I think we would all be a little bit less anxious.
Thank you so much for your opinion, even though it was an hour and now I have a lot of work to do.
I'm sorry I took so much of your time, but thank you so much, James. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you for agreeing to come on. And again, I said this in the last video. If anyone else wants to come on and have a conversation, we don't even have to do this in person. We can do it over FaceTime. Not FaceTime, Zoom, because I can't record on FaceTime. I'm happy to do that.
And that offer still stands to this day, even though this video is a couple months late. If any of my friends wants to come on and have a talk about racism, of course we don't even have to talk about racism. There are many other topics that are going on in the world that we can talk about. Just hit me up and we'll figure something out. Most recent videos are popping up on the screen. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And remember guys, do what you love what you do. Peace.